It's time for Lefties Losing It. Let's check in on the TV series Law and Order SVU, which jumped the shark more than a decade ago. A show that's supposed to be about law and order prefers to demonise ICE agents these days. Watch this travesty as the show's heroine is arrested by ICE.
Captain Benson, you're interfering with the federal operation.
No, she's not. Jorge Ruiz is a material witness, and he's in the custody of the NYPD.
Do you really want to help a rapist go free? He's ours, okay? Take him to holding.
Once he provides his testimony, we'll release him.
This you? You have been obstructing this operation from the beginning. That is a federal charge. Put your hands behind your back.
Well, we shouldn't be too shocked. Last year, SVU had an episode where a white rape victim reflected on her white privilege because her rapist was black.
I am going to. Believe me. Because I can afford therapy. I have that luxury. And maybe one day I'll be okay. But if that teenager goes to prison, he may not be. Ever.
But Law and Order still has a long way to go to reach the dangerously woke heights of this episode of Cocomelon Lane, a Netflix program for children. Remember this? A boy in a tutu dancing for his two dads. Of course.
We know about you. You love to get up and dance. How about you break out those moves for your two biggest fans? If you're not sure what to choose, think about all the things you like to do.
Wow. Okay, now to Randy Windgarden, the hard left activist paid $500,000 to be the president of the American Federation of Teachers. She's determined to whip up maximum fear and hysteria. Here she explains why she's wearing a paperclip.
There is a reason why in Norway, when the Nazis took over Norway, that's why I'm wearing this paperclip. I wear two things now. The American flag, nobody can take patriotism away from me, and a paperclip. What did the teachers in Norway do when there was the Nazi occupation? They started wearing paperclips.
That's the sort of deranged rhetoric that could incite crazy people to commit acts of violence. And never forget that that mad banshee was allowed to direct government policy on things like masking and school closures under the Biden administration. Now, let's check in with the ladies of The View, who are all triggered by the notion that members of the armed forces should actually be fit for service.
Pete Hegseth spoke to U.S. military leaders from around the world to lay out his very retro vision for our armed forces. Watch.
This administration has done a great deal from day one to remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department. We are done with that. It's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon.
Why is he obsessed with fat?
Yeah, and fitness.
Gosh, I don't know, Joy. Why is the Secretary of War obsessed about fitness? Do you really think fat, obese troops are ideal? And Joy is looking for some conspiracy behind this bizarro push for standards, as she sees it.
So why do you think they're doing this? I mean, there's always an ulterior motive for all that crazy stuff.
Well, that's the major question, and if it has anything to do with the recruiting lull, they probably just made it worse.
That was the dangerously misinformed Sarah Haynes claiming there is a recruiting issue. There was a massive recruiting issue under the Biden administration. As soon as Donald Trump was re-elected in November, recruitment numbers soared to record highs. We really should have more of Sarah Haynes on Lefties Losing It, because she's as awful as the others on The View, but she's a little bit boring, isn't she? While Sunny Hostin, for example, is awful but weirdly compelling. Here she is being befuddled. Fun.
I'm actually really befuddled by why he did that. The optics were terrible. Return
to the highest male standard for combat positions because the troops were fat. I don't understand how that was supposed to be an uplifting message for our military.
You know, her complete ignorance is part of her charm, really. She doesn't get it. She thinks having standards is demoralising. I guess it would be for The View because all the hosts would be sacked if there were any standards, which would be devastating for this segment. Where else can I get such a ready supply of weapon-grade crazy? Here is Joy Behar again. This time she's claiming America won't survive 3 more years of Trump.
Every day. It's every day is a shock and awe here. And I for one, am skeptical that we will survive this.
Joining me now is Newsweek's Senior Editor-at-Large and Article 3 Project Senior Counsel, Josh Hammer. Josh, the ladies of The View are outraged by the notion that military personnel should be fit for service. When will the left understand that meritocracy is back and all the DEI madness and political posturing that really has no place in the armed forces, that is out? That is something Pete Hegseth was very clear about.
This administration has done a great deal from day one to remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department, to rip out the politics. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that.
Josh, that was pretty emphatic. What did you make of that speech?
That's what I voted for, Rita. That is literally exactly what I voted for. In fact, I was a very early supporter of Pete Hegseth to be Secretary of Defense. I wrote numerous articles at the Daily Mail and elsewhere supporting his confirmation. That was a tough confirmation fight, actually. It was very difficult to try to get Joni Ernst Spy on board. So I was personally all hands on deck there. And this is exactly what I anticipated. And this is exactly what I wanted, because Pete Hegseth is the kind of guy, Rita, who served his country honorably in multiple overseas theaters. He is of a younger generation. He knows all the problems. He can directly relate to the problems, the woke, addled nature of the United States military under Presidents Barack Obama and Joe Biden. He can relate to it because he lived it, because he has seen it with his own eyes in a way that a lot of these stodgy, old, fat generals that he's referring to have not necessarily been able to relate to. But really, Rita, what Hegseth is trying to do, it's really not that radical. It's actually something of a throwback to a bygone era from as recently as, I don't know, like 20, 25 years ago at the most. I mean, once upon a time, the United States military was unanimously feared across the world, all throughout the world, as the most lethal fighting force in the modern history of mankind. Maybe really in all of mankind, at least going back to the days of the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago. But what made the United States military great, what led the U.S. military to storm the beaches of Normandy and to take the high ground on the cliffs of France against the Nazi invaders there, those men who did that, Rita, they were not there because they thought it was good to be fat. They were not there because they thought it was good to be a man who would put on a female wig or chop off their body part in the name of so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion. They were not there because they had some sort of body positivity or because they were gay or transgender. No, they were there because they were men, typically just men, who were really, really, really good at hunting down and killing the enemy in the most effective and efficient way possible. That is the military that I strive for. That's the military that Pete Hegseth envisions. And God willing, Rita, that is the military under his leadership and President Donald J. Trump that we're going to get back here ASAP.